Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IAS English. In our today's video, we'll try to understand what were the circumstances that led to the birth of Northeast India. Now, the politico, administrative and legal circumstances were so interesting that it created different states in a region which many of the Indians refer to as a united Northeast region. But you'll need to understand that this region is very diverse and the history behind this region is very complex at all. So, in order to deal with this complexity, in order to make this thing simple, we are doing this video. Okay. Now, the notes which I will be using in our today's session, in case if you want to download them, you can go to a particular Telegram channel called as ATS Live, and while you're at it, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel also. So as I was saying, we Indians, most of the people, including yours truly, we refer to the northeastern part of our country as a geographical monolith. But this is an incorrect way of understanding the region that is Northeast India. Have you seen anyone from northeastern part of our country identifying themselves as a northeasterner? No, right? They identify themselves as Arunachali. They identify themselves as coming from Nagaland, Manipur, Meghalaya, and so on, right? Because this geographical monolith region, which is a wrong conception in our mind, actually is a diverse region consisting presently of 8 states. Now, you'll realize many Indians, they have a misconception that Northeast is made out of 7 sisters. That is 7 sister states, but that is incorrect. Because in that process, you always forget about Sikkim, which is the last state that joined the Northeastern Council. Now, Northeastern Council is a statutory body which deals with policy making and developing planning at the regional level in the Northeast, right? So, these 8 states, which are the part of Northeastern Council, this what makes this region Northeast. Now, what you have to understand how the scheme of things were before the independence. Now, before independence, you need to understand India at that time, what India is today, that was geographically divided into 2 separate regions. One were directly controlled by Britishers called as British Indian territories, and another one who enjoyed a considerable kind of an autonomy, they were called as princely states, right? So, in India, before independence, 5 out of these 8 states, they were part of colonial Assam. It included present-day Assam, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Mizoram, as well as Arunachal Pradesh. Right, so these areas, colonial Assam, were directly ruled by the colonial government. Now came Manipur and Tripura. Manipur and Tripura, they were princely states. So they enjoyed their power under the paramountcy of Britishers, and British officers were posted there who were ultimately responsible to the governor of Assam, but these princely states enjoyed a certain kind of autonomy. And the third category was Sikkim. Sikkim, for a long period of time, even during British rule, they enjoyed judicial independence. So they remained independent under the sovereignty of Britain. And after Britishers left India, Sikkim emerged as an independent country up till 1975 when they were integrated into the Indian Union. So this was the history of Northeast before independence. Now things get very interesting when we have to understand how Britishers governed colonial Assam. As I told you, colonial Assam were directly governed by the Britishers. Now Britishers, they first made inroads into the Assam in 19th century, and at that time they took help of the Ahom king in order to deal with the challenges which the Britishers faced during Anglo-Burmese war, which happened between 1824 to 1826. Right, now at that time, this pairing of British East India Company and Ahom kings subsequently enabled the Britishers to consolidate and hold their power into the present colonial day Assam. And you will realize for a considerable period of time, that is from 1974 till 1904, Assam enjoyed a separate provincial identity, and for the rest of the time during the British rule, they were part of Bengal province. Now at that time when Britishers were consolidating their power into the colonial Assam, they captured many other nearby hill territories. It included Kingdom of Khasis, which is presently located in the state of Meghalaya. It also included Kachar Kingdom. It also included Jaintia Kingdom, Sylhet region, which is in Bangladesh right now, and parts of Meghalaya. So Britishers, with the help of Ahom dynasty, it helped consolidate their power over the colonial Assam, and it also brought many nearby areas like Khasis, like Jaintia Kingdom, like Sylhet into the fold of what was known as colonial Assam. Now you must be thinking, what was the politico-legal setup that the Britishers had in the colonial Assam? Was it the same as compared to the rest of the British Indian territories, or was it different? Well, let me tell you right now, it was different. Why? Because Britishers, they governed Assam as a frontier province. Now, what is a frontier province? You need to understand, for long Britishers had the concept of maintaining a certain portion of area which was located very near to the international border as a buffer state, right? So these were the areas which were meant to protect the areas where Britishers directly ruled. So the intention of British government at that time to control over the Assam was to maintain itself as a frontier province, very much same as the northwest frontier province in the present day Pakistan. So as to conclude, the political legal setup in then colonial Assam was very different from as compared to the rest of British Indian territory. Now, what was Britishers best known for? Britishers, they were best known for using the policy of divide and rule, and this also happened in the colonial Assam. What the Britishers do very shrewdly, they tried to create and inculcate differences between the peoples who were living in the valley regions and the peoples who were living in the hills. And this binary division, which was created by Britishers under the pretext of social protection, was actually having economic and political motives. What you need to understand, that the boundaries Britishers created between the people living in the valley and the hills through inner Rhine regulation, these regulations were very arbitrary. Had this had social motives, it would have been a static regulation, but you will realize inner Rhine regulations were changed arbitrarily to include areas that were having tea plantations, that were having coal tracks and valuable forest areas. So this evidence gives you an idea that the intention of creating this division was security interest, this was economic interest, because these areas had very economic potential which the Britishers wanted to harness. Similarly, even in the hill regions, the Britishers categorized these hills into two different kind of areas: excluded areas and partially excluded areas. What were excluded areas? Excluded areas were the one where Lushais or Naga tribes used to live. These were outside the subject of British subjects. So British subjects, the people who were living under the British Indian territories, they could not have entered into the area which was designated as a excluded area. Now coming to the partially excluded area. In partially excluded area, British subject could socially and economically interact with the subjects living in the partially excluded area. But here, the Britishers subjects, even the plain dwellers, they were not allowed to acquire the land. So this was a partial restrictions imposed on British subjects and valley living people into the hill areas which were categorized as partially excluded area. Now coming back to the British rule. Now you need to understand, in colonial Assam, there was certain regions which were directly ruled by the Britishers, and these were territories which were limited into the parts of Assam, present day Assam and Sylhet region, which is presently located in Bangladesh. And these were called as settled district. Now what was the reason behind governing these settled districts directly? It was economic reason, because these districts were densely populated areas and eventually they become the region's economic heartland, with many industries like tea, coal, oil industry, they emerged in this region, right? So this was the area of colonial Assam which was directly ruled by the British government. Then came the area so-called excluded areas which were located in the hill regions. These areas eventually was controlled by various and multiple tribes, and it had minimum colonial control. Therefore, these areas being sparsely populated was seen by Britishers as not so economically important, and that is why these hill regions ultimately became what? The buffer areas or buffer zones. Buffer zones were basically areas between the densely populated areas and the boundary, and the areas in between were called as buffer zones, right? Now, for instance, the northeast frontier tracts, which was taken out of the colonial Assam in 1914, it was located between the settled districts of Assam and the international border that the Britishers shared with then Tibet and with then Myanmar, that is present day Myanmar and Burma, right? So these were the intentions of the British rule, to segregate the area, to divide the people artificially so as to solve the British colonial motives. What were the British colonial motives? It was to harness region's economic potential and to ensure that an area which is sparsely populated acts as a buffer zone between international boundary and the settled districts, right? Now let us come back to what happened after India got independent. After India got independent, the question that was in front of the independent Indian government, that how should they govern the region that is called as Northeast India. They came up with many challenges. First challenge was that 98% of present day Northeast India, it shared its boundary, that is international boundary, with countries like China, Myanmar, Bangladesh, which was then East Pakistan, as well as Bhutan. So on one hand, the government of India, independent government of India, it wanted to take care of its security interest. On the other hand, the government also wanted to govern these areas like a normal administrative area like the rest of the country. So this was the situation that was put in front of the independent Indian government. Now, Indian government knew that they need to introduce a new form of governance structure which would do justice to the region, where the government could take care of its national security interests and at the same time ensure developmental interest or development to happen in this geographically isolated region. Now, what happened amidst the many discussions that happened in Constituent Assembly of India after India got independent, one was the future of political structure in the independent state of Assam. Now, the Assam government had its representative in the Constituent Assembly, Rohini Kumar Chaudhary. He argued that Assam should be assimilated and the divide that the Britishers created between the hill districts and the valley should be taken away, right? Now, this question was eventually settled in 1950 when the demand for Assam to be introduced in Assamese as a language to be introduced in the Schedule 8 picked up. But this also created one problem, that the tribes who were living in a protected area at the time of Britishers wanted to retain these kind of protections even after India got independent. So the constituent makers or the Constituent Assembly, our founding fathers of our constitution, they came up with a brilliant idea. They came up with the idea that why don't we introduce 6th schedule in the Constitution of India, which would allow the hill regions in the state of Northeast or in the area of Northeast to have autonomous district councils, and this autonomous district councils would be ultimately for administration of tribal regions. So this constitutional brilliance, this constitutional out of the box thinking enabled the Indian government to have a separate 6th schedule area within a state of Assam, which ensured that the hill tribes were protected. Similarly, the Northeast Frontier Agencies, which was taken out of the colonial Assam in 1911, it got what was called ultimately as a union territory status. NEFA at that time included present-day Arunachal Pradesh and parts of Nagaland. And this area happened to be administered directly from New Delhi, and the Assam governor acted as a agent of President of India governing the NEFA areas. Now, let us come back to what happened after India got independent. I told you as soon as India got independent, the priority of government was to take care of its security interest and to administer this area like a normal area as the rest of the country. But in 1962, India fought a war with China. Similarly, in 1965, India also fought a war with Pakistan. And remember, at that time, Pakistan also had its eastern bloc that was now present-day Bangladesh. So because of this external challenges, New Delhi or Indian government realized that we can't let internal divisions fester our unity. We already have a pressure coming from external enemies, and if we keep differences inside the northeastern regions festering, it would create security issues going forward. So considering this policy, even at that time, Nehru's policy of indulging in colonial, this was reversed. And the immediate aftermath of 1962 war was that the state of Nagaland was created with introduction of 13th Amendment Act. Now you must be thinking, a state can be created by simply using Article 3 of the Constitution without needing a Constitutional Amendment Act. So why was 13th Amendment Act happened to make a separate state of Nagaland? This was because of introduction of Article 371A, which provided certain kind of protections to the Nagaland state in order to ensure their autonomy, in order to ensure their cultural and social security. Right. So this is how the colonial state of Assam, which included Nagaland at that time, led to formation of a new state that was Nagaland. Now, let us come back to the other areas in the northeast. Now, Manipur and Tripura, which I've told you were princely states, right? They were made into union territories in 1950s and 60s. So, in Manipur and Tripura, the governance was the responsibility ultimately of the union government. Now, the idea of northeast, it took its present form. You can trace back to the events that happened in 1970s with passage of 2 acts to the parliament. This was Northeastern Areas Reorganization Act 1971 and the Northeastern Council Act 1971. Yes, this is the very act which provides the statutory recognition to the Northeast Council, which consists of how many states? Which consists of 8 states that I've told you initially. And as a result, Meghalaya and then Union Territory of Mizoram were carved out of the autonomous regions or districts which were located in Assam. Similarly, on 1972, that is January the 21st, the princely state of Manipur, Union Territory of Meghalaya, and the princely state of Tripura, they were granted complete statehood as a part of Indian Union, and ultimately NEFA, it became as the Union Territory of Arunachal Pradesh. And in 1987, the erstwhile state or the erstwhile autonomous region of Mizoram and the Union Territory of Arunachal Pradesh, they were granted full statehood. This was 1987. So this was the development that happened in Assam that led to creation of the present day states in Northeast. So as I told you, Northeast, which many people mistakenly refer to as a geographically monolith region, is actually a very diverse region, and all of these regions have different history, just like I told you right now. And there is a question that appeared in this year's prelims, or in last year's prelims in 2025. We'll solve that question, but before that, there is a very important announcement. We right now are offering discounts because of Republic Day sale. As you know, in 26th of January 2026, we are celebrating 77th Republic Day, and as a result, we are offering 77% off on all the courses of StudyIQ. This includes 77% off on Resolution Plus batches, which will start admissions for January morning batch starting from 27th, and this is the very day where the sale is also ending. Now you need to understand, right now the options in front of you are courses for 2027 and courses for 2028, and if you take admissions before 27th of January, you are going to get maximum discount, 77% discount already applicable because of the Republic Day sale, and in addition to that, you can use the code ATS Live, and this code will help you fetch maximum discounts on all the courses. Let me tell you the benefits of Resolution Plus batches. They offer live classes. In case if you miss out live classes, you have access to recordings of all the lectures. You can watch them n number of times. Similarly, in case if you have doubts, and doubts are very natural during UPSC prelims, you can get them solved with contacting your designated mentor. Yes, as soon as you get admissions in our batches, a designated mentor would be allocated to you who will take care of your academic doubts. Similarly, to practice your learning, and you need to practice a lot before going into the exam, then you can utilize prelims and mains test series which are bundled in the Resolution Plus batches courses. All of these benefits are exclusive to students who take admissions in 27 or 2028 batches. It depends upon when you want to give your exam. And do not forget, when you apply the code ATS Live, you are going to get maximum discounts. It is very simple to remember. You learn to thrive by using the code ATS Live. Okay. Now, this is the question that I was telling you about. It appeared in 2025. Consider the following statements. You have to match the states with their descriptions, and do let me know which is the option which presents you the correctly matched pairs. And this is what from my side for today. Wish you all a very happy Republic Day, and the notes you'll get it on a Telegram channel called as ATS Live. So this is all from my side. Please have a very good Republic Day, and do let me know your opinions in the comment section, whether you are satisfied with the history of Northeast India or not, or should I cover more topics on Northeast. Also do let me know in the comments. So this is all from my side. Please have a very good day.